Adventure of Jack and the Monkey. Once upon a time, in a small village nestled in a green valley, there lived a kind and adventurous boy named Jack. Jack lived with his parents and little sister in a cozy cottage on the edge of the village. One day, Jack's mother gave him a special task. She needed him to go to the market to buy some vegetables for dinner. Jack was excited to go to the market because he had never been there before. As he walked through the village, he saw all sorts of interesting sights and sounds. There were dogs barking, chickens clucking, and children playing. Jack even saw a group of musicians performing in the town square. When he finally arrived at the market, he was amazed by all the colorful stalls filled with fruits and vegetables. There were rows and rows of ripe tomatoes, shiny apples, and plump potatoes. Jack was having a great time looking at everything when he suddenly realized that he had lost his coin purse. Panicked, Jack searched high and low for his purse, but it was nowhere to be found. Just when he was about to give up hope, he heard a faint jingling sound. He followed the sound and saw a mischievous little monkey sitting on a tree branch, holding Jack's coin purse in its hands. Jack knew he had to get his coin purse back, so he came up with a plan. He snuck up behind the monkey and made a loud noise. The monkey was so surprised that it dropped the coin purse and ran off into the forest. Jack retrieved his coin purse and hurried back to his mother, who was waiting for him at home. When he told her what had happened, she was very proud of him for being brave and resourceful. From then on, Jack was known as the bravest and most adventurous boy in the village. And he lived happily ever after. Friends of the Sea. There was once a little girl named Maria who lived in a small village by the sea. Maria loved the sea and spent all her days playing on the sandy beach and swimming in the crystal clear water. She was the happiest little girl in the world. One day, while she was playing on the beach, Maria saw a beautiful mermaid sitting on a rock by the water's edge. The mermaid had long, flowing hair the color of seaweed and a shimmering tail that sparkled in the sunlight. Maria was fascinated by the mermaid and asked if she could play with her. The mermaid nodded and smiled, and the two of them spent the whole day playing and having fun in the water. They swam and danced and chased each other through the waves. As the sun began to set, the mermaid told Maria that it was time for her to go home. Maria was sad to say goodbye, but the mermaid promised that they would meet again soon. And they did. Every day, Maria would return to the beach and play with her mermaid friend. As the years passed, Maria and the mermaid remained the best of friends, always there for each other, no matter what. And they lived happily ever after, playing and laughing by the sea. The Wizard's Spell. In a far-off kingdom, there lived a young prince named Max. Max was kind and brave, and he was loved by all who knew him. One day, a wicked sorcerer cast a spell on Max, turning him into a fearsome dragon. The sorcerer thought that he had won, but he didn't know that Max was still inside the dragon, fighting to break free. Max tried with all his might to break the spell, but no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't escape. As the days went by, Max became more and more dragon-like. He breathed fire, he flew through the air, and he even ate sheep. But deep down, he knew that he was still Max. He knew that he had to find a way to break the spell. One day, Max heard about a wise old wizard who lived in a distant land. The wizard was said to be able to break any spell, no matter how powerful. Max knew that this was his chance. He flew as fast as he could to the wizard's castle and begged him to break the spell. The wizard looked at Max and saw the good heart that beat within him. He knew that he had to help. So he waved his wand and spoke a powerful spell. In a flash of light, Max was turned back into a prince. Max was overjoyed. He thanked the wizard and returned home, where he was greeted by his loving subjects. From then on, Max ruled justly and wisely, and he lived happily ever after. The Magical Journey. There was once a little rabbit named Lily who lived in a cozy burrow in the heart of the forest. Lily was a curious and adventurous bunny, and she loved nothing more than exploring the woods and discovering new things. One day, while out for a walk, Lily stumbled upon a beautiful meadow filled with wildflowers. She had never seen anything like it before, and she was enchanted by the sight. She hopped and skipped through the meadow, feeling happier than she had ever been. As she was playing, Lily heard a faint voice calling her name. She followed the sound and found a tiny fairy sitting on a leaf. The fairy was lost and alone, and she had been searching for someone to help her find her way home. Lily felt sorry for the fairy and offered to help her. Together, they set off on a journey through the forest, with Lily leading the way. Along the way, they encountered all sorts of obstacles and dangers, but Lily was brave and resourceful, and she always found a way to overcome them. After many days of traveling, they finally reached the fairy's home, a magical land hidden deep within the forest. The fairy was overjoyed to be home, and she thanked Lily for her help. As a reward, she gave Lily a special gift, a pair of butterfly wings that allowed her to fly. Lily was thrilled. She flew through the sky, higher and higher, feeling more alive than she had ever felt before. And she lived happily ever after, exploring the world and helping those in need. The Battle for the Village. There was once a young and brave knight named Sir John who lived in a castle in the heart of the kingdom. Sir John was known throughout the land as a defender of the people, always ready to help those in need. One day, a dragon attacked on a nearby village, and Sir John knew that he had to do something to save the people. He gathered a group of brave knights and set out to defeat the dragon. The battle was fierce and the dragon was a formidable opponent, but Sir John and his knights were determined to win. They fought with all their might and, in the end, they emerged victorious. The dragon was defeated, and the people were saved. Sir John returned home a hero, and he was hailed by the people as their savior. From then on, he was known as Sir John the Brave, and he lived happily ever after, defending the kingdom and helping those in need. The Kind King and the Dragon. Once upon a time, in a far-off kingdom, there was a kind and gentle king who ruled over his people with fairness and compassion. One day, the king heard of a terrible dragon that was terrorizing the neighboring village, burning down houses and injuring the people. The king knew that he had to do something to help the village and put an end to the dragon's reign of terror. He rallied his bravest knights and set out to slay the dragon. But, try as they might, the dragon was too powerful for the knights to defeat. They returned to the castle, wounded and defeated. The king realized that he needed to come up with a different plan. He decided to seek out the help of a wise wizard who lived in a tower deep in the forest. The wizard listened to the king's story and knew just what to do. He gave the king a potion made from the rarest herbs, and told him to pour it into the dragon's mouth while it was asleep. The king and his knights set out once again, this time with the potion in hand. They found the dragon fast asleep in a cave and quickly poured the potion into its mouth. To their surprise, the dragon did not wake up, but instead began to shrink, until it was the size of a small kitten. The village was overjoyed when they heard the news, and the king returned home to a hero's welcome. The dragon, now small and harmless, was taken in by a family in the village as a pet. And from that day on, the kingdom was at peace, and the king was loved and respected by all his people. The end. Alice's Underground Adventure. Once upon a time, in a land far, far away, there lived a little girl named Alice. Alice was kind and curious, but she was also very small and often felt overlooked by her family and friends. One day, while wandering in the forest, Alice stumbled upon a mysterious rabbit hole. Without hesitation, she climbed down the rabbit hole, eager to see where it led. To her surprise, she found herself in a strange and magical underground world. As she explored the underground world, she met a host of peculiar characters, including the White Rabbit, the Mad Hatter, and the Queen of Hearts. Each one had their own quirks and personalities, but Alice found them all to be quite friendly. Throughout her adventures, Alice learned many valuable lessons. She learned that it was important to be confident in herself and not to be afraid of being small. She also learned that it was important to be kind to others, even if they were different from her. Eventually, Alice found her way back to the rabbit hole and returned to the world above. When she emerged, she felt different. She was bigger, taller, and stronger, but more importantly, she was confident in her abilities and knew that she was capable of achieving anything she set her mind to. From that day forward, Alice was no longer the small, overlooked girl she once was. She had found her voice, and she knew that she could make a difference in the world. The end. Teddy finds his bear family. Once upon a time, in a forest filled with tall trees and sparkling streams, there lived a little bear named Teddy. Teddy was a curious and friendly bear, but he was also very shy and always kept to himself. One day, while out for a walk, Teddy met a family of bears who were having a picnic. They welcomed him to join them and, to his surprise, Teddy found himself having a great time. He laughed and played with the other bears and enjoyed their delicious food. But when it was time to go home, Teddy realized he didn't want to leave. He enjoyed being around other bears and having fun. He didn't want to be alone anymore. So he asked the other bears if he could join their family and stay with them. The other bears were happy to have Teddy join them and he became a member of their family. He learned how to forage for food, play games, and make new friends, and he never felt alone again. From that day on, Teddy was no longer a shy, lonely bear. He had found his place in the world, and he knew that he was surrounded by love and acceptance. The end. Finley the Brave. Once upon a time, deep in the ocean, there lived a little fish named Finley. Finley was a very hard-working fish, always eager to help his community, but he was also very small and felt overshadowed by the bigger fish around him. One day, a school of giant sharks threatened the peace of the ocean and Finley, along with his friends, decided to take action and protect their home. They knew that their size might be a disadvantage, but they didn't let that stop them. Finley came up with a plan to outsmart the sharks. He suggested that they should use their small size to their advantage and sneak into the sharks' cave, where they would steal their treasure, which the sharks had collected by bullying the other sea creatures. The plan was a success, and Finley and his friends were able to steal back the treasure and restore peace to the ocean. Finley's bravery and resourcefulness had saved the day. From that day forward, Finley was no longer the small, overlooked fish he once was. He had found his courage and had made a real difference in his community. He and his friends were celebrated as heroes and they continue to live in a peaceful ocean. The end. The Metamorphosis of Crawley. Once upon a time, in a land filled with lush gardens and singing birds, there lived a little caterpillar named Crawley. Crawley was a curious and adventurous caterpillar, but he was also quite lazy and spent most of his days napping in the sun. One day, Crawley came across a beautiful butterfly and became fascinated by its delicate wings and graceful movements. He asked the butterfly how it had become so beautiful, and the butterfly explained that she had gone through a transformation. She had been a caterpillar just like Crawly, but had worked hard to spin a cocoon, which allowed her to transform into a butterfly. Crawly was inspired by the butterfly's story and decided to work hard to spin his own cocoon. It was hard work and it took him a long time, but finally he finished it. He waited inside the cocoon until he emerged as a beautiful butterfly. He flew around his garden spreading his wings and dancing in the sky, feeling alive and happy. He realized that the hard work was worth it, and that it was not enough just to be curious and adventurous, but it was also important to work hard to achieve what you want. From that day on, Crawly was not only known for being curious and adventurous, but also for being hardworking and determined. He lived a long and happy life, inspiring others around him to chase their dreams. The end. Teddy the Bear. Once upon a time, in a beautiful forest lived a kind and curious bear named Teddy. Teddy loved to explore the forest and discover new things. One day, while he was out for a walk, he came across a small stream. As he bent down to drink some water, he saw his reflection for the first time. "Oh my," thought Teddy, "I am a bear." He was so excited to finally know what he was and spent the rest of the day telling all of his animal friends about his discovery. From that day on, Teddy was known as the bear who discovered himself. He was proud of who he was and loved exploring the forest and sharing his knowledge with others. One day, a group of hunters came into the forest and started to trap the animals. Teddy knew he had to do something, so he came up with a plan to save his friends. He rallied all the animals of the forest and together they chased the hunters out of the forest, never to return again. The animals of the forest lived happily ever after, knowing that they were safe and that they could always count on Teddy, their clever and brave friend. The end. Prince Jack and the Trapped Fairy. Once upon a time in a far-off kingdom, there lived a young prince named Jack. Jack was kind and brave, but also a bit curious and impulsive. One day, while wandering in the forest, he came across an old, locked chest. Being the curious prince that he was, he couldn't resist trying to open it. After struggling with the lock for some time, he finally managed to open the chest, only to find that it was empty. Disappointed, he was about to leave when he heard a faint voice coming from inside the chest. "Please help me," the voice said. Intrigued, Jack looked inside the chest again, and to his surprise, he saw a small, beautiful fairy trapped inside. She had been put under a spell by an evil witch and was trapped in the chest for many years. Without hesitation, Jack vowed to help the fairy and set out on a journey to find the witch and break the spell. He faced many dangers and obstacles along the way, but with the help of new friends he met along the way, including a clever fox and a strong giant, he was able to defeat the witch and break the spell. With her freedom regained, the fairy thanked Jack and granted him 3 wishes as a reward. Jack used his wishes wisely, wishing for peace in the kingdom, a bountiful harvest for the farmers and happiness for his family and friends. From that day on, Jack was known as the hero who saved the fairy and brought peace and prosperity to the kingdom. He was admired and respected by all, and he lived happily ever after. The end.